Max Verstappen and the British media have been in quite some fights in the past couple of months, with a three-time world champion claiming that he has the wrong passport for this sport and that the biased opinions of the British media are definitely present. But this is something that has aggravated one of the most renowned pundits in the sport, Martin Brundle, as he decided to hit back towards Verstappen's claims that there are biased opinions involved from Sky F1. But has the narrative changed a bit now that the Dutchman has presented a dominant drive in Brazil? And more importantly, is there a truce to be achieved between these two sides? It's safe to say that one of the biggest dramas has been revolving around the British media and Verstappen, with the three-time world champion feeling like the fact he beat Hamilton back in 2021 and has been dominating the sport ever since, with a bit of competition arising from Norris, who's also British like Hamilton, in 2024. This has fueled talks about potential biased opinions from the British media, who are primarily the driving force when it comes to commentators and professional opinions being shared on the grid, which is why the fans are massively shaping up their thoughts on the sport and its drivers based on these takes. When talking about this, Verstappen has thrown a bit of a jab towards the British media, who weren't present in the post-race conference in Brazil, saying, "I have a quick question here. I mean, I appreciate all of you being here, but I don't see any British press. Do they have to run to the airport? Or they don't know where the press conference is?" These are the comments that weren't accepted kindly by pundits like Croft and Brundle, and when addressing them, Martin made sure that his words would be heard and his feelings would be expressed. However, David Croft, the man who's never present at the post-race conferences, was quick to call out Verstappen and elaborated how the situation stand from their point of view as he went on to state, "Sometimes there's more to a story than just a soundbite or a chance to attack people for perception of British bias. For my part, as it's a press conference for written media only, I never attend the post-race conference, no matter who's won. Thursday press conference are different. They're for broadcast and written media together, just to help people understand. And the quotes from this are freely available to all media, hence other journalists might be off gathering other stories at the time, in the knowledge that they won't miss anything said at the FIA post-race presser." Be that as it may, Brundle has also taken the freedom to talk about this situation because this is something that's hurt him and the entire Sky F1 broadcasting service and is putting shade to their entire reputation. When talking about it and expanding as to whether or not the Sky F1 show is putting more detail on British drivers, Brundle said, "No, I don't think we try to tell the story of British drivers with perhaps a bit more detail. I don't think there's any bias. I mean, I'm a Brit. I'm a former British Formula 1 driver and we're broadcasting primarily to a British broadcaster. Others take our feed all the way around the world. So do we? We're nothing like that. When I watch the Olympics or the World Cup or the European Cup, obviously your commentators are fervently pro whichever country they're from. I don't think we do that. I like to think we're pretty balanced. I really do." Now, these statements were made in a podcast of Sky F1 hosted by Matt Baker, and the comments were massively influenced by Adrian Newey, as well as who stated earlier in this year that there's definitely bias towards Verstappen and Red Bull because Sky has a huge influence around the world. Their viewing is truly international, but their coverage is quite nationalistic, which can have an influence of fans picking their favourite drivers. What Newey has also added is that this is something that Red Bull has gone through with Vettel in the glory days of 2010 to 2013, when the team won everything there was to be won, as the Brits mastermind Newey felt like both Vettel and Verstappen had been demonised by the British media. One thing that doesn't go in Verstappen's favour when talking about the British media is the fact that there weren't any Dutch media to support him for ending the drought of 10 races without a win, and this is something that's been talked about by Jamie Price, who's a motorsport photographer and a man who was present at the infamous press conference. Writing on X about this situation, he said, "There was no Dutch media in the post-race conference either. By my count, there was one French journalist, 4 Brazilian journalists, Tom Clarkson, who's the host, the TV camera operator, and me." Furthermore, Brundle has gone on to turn the situation in his favour and said that it's Sky F1 who are getting the flack from everybody because from his personal experience, there's never enough good that you can do for the people that would suffice them and make the environment happy. Continuing on this controversial topic, Brundle said, "And actually, we get flack from pretty much everybody, because what I've learned in these 27-28 years is that you can say 1,000 positive things about somebody and one negative will get back to them and their fans get onto it, or their family and friends tell them, and I get a few cool sideways glances sometimes. Nobody ever comes up and says, 'Thank you very much for what you said about us.' There was one case that Brundle has pinpointed in his career that was different from anything he's experienced in his career, and that's the 2016's Malaysian GP, where Nico Rosberg came down personally to thank him for saying the good stuff that he did. However, on the other hand, Verstappen has supported the claim of Newey that there is a British biased opinion towards him, and when addressing this matter, after the statement of Adrian, Verstappen went on to claim, "Absolutely, I agree 100%. In terms of discussion, you'll always defend your countryman instead of the other, but you also try to keep it as neutral as possible, and some countries go overboard with it, I think. In the end, they can say and shout whatever they want. It doesn't matter to me." Now, what's very interesting is the fact that the 1996 world champion, Damon Hill, who's also British and is a Sky F1 pundit, has spoken negatively about the impact that Red Bull has on Verstappen because they're always endorsing that type of racing from the three-time world champion and have never criticised him for any wrongdoing, such as the Mexico move against Norris. This just adds fuel to the fire because it goes beyond criticising a driver, it's criticising an entire team and the structure that they're led by, which is why comments from Verstappen and Red Bull are somehow structured well in this position. Furthermore, Verstappen continued with his statements against certain people on the grid who he feels were a bit bored in the past couple of seasons when he dominated the sport. And that's why now they're finding joy that the downfall of Red Bull has suddenly combined with the fact that there is a British driver who can challenge him for the Drivers' Championship, a mission that's taken a massive step back in Brazil. And when talking about it, Verstappen continued, "I know what most people are like, it's nothing new. Last year was perfect, so it must have hurt a lot of many people that they couldn't say anything negative. Now they got the chance to say something, so they're all coming out of the woodwork. At the end of the day, I've got the wrong passport for this paddock." These statements were further bolstered by the father of the three-time world champion, who felt like his son has done something that made him the proudest he's ever felt of him in the F1 career. Won a race by starting P17 and gambling with two more drivers on the grid, the Alpine drivers, and then shutting the mouths of the British media and journalists. When talking about this, Jos, as always, didn't mince words and went on to say, "This is Max's perfect answer to a whole lot of whining, and certainly in the direction of the English. Commentators, journalists and former drivers, they'll keep their big mouths shut for now. Max has shown that he's the very best. Those people who shout that he should change his driving style is perfect. Also, such a first lap in the rain where he made up 6 places. He's always perfect in these conditions. He showed who's the best. I believe he was very motivated after the negative journalists from England and the negative drivers. They think they're taking him out of his good mood, but he will only get better because of it. I'm very proud of what he did. The whole world saw who's the very best." It's safe to assume that Verstappen will continue with this agenda for as much as he can, and the fact that he could be the third driver in the history of the sport to win the championship, while his team finishes third in the Constructors' Championship after Keke Rosberg in 1982 and Nelson Piquet in 1983, will make this feature even more impressive. However, what we must expect in 2025 is a strong fight from a lot of opponents, and with the combination of Hamilton and Ferrari, the situation is going to be extremely anticipated, and here we're going to see how the British media is going to approach things, especially given the fact that Hamilton has changed teams and will race in Ferrari. So, with all this in mind, do you think that the British media is biased when it comes to Verstappen? And if so, do you think this will change in the upcoming future now that there's been claims of greater lengths that Sky F1 cannot get away with? Let us know in the comments down below.